Okay, wonderful. So I'm David Nirenberg, the director and Leon Levy professor at the Institute. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to this really very special event honoring the establishment of the Frank C. and Florence S. Ogg Professorship, and in celebration of Andrew Ogg, Professor Emeritus at UC Berkeley, and even more important to us, a past member here at the Institute in the School of Mathematics, who's here with you today. I, on the other hand, am not with you today, and I'm very sorry for that. I've been looking forward to celebrating Professor Ogg with you for quite some time and to recognizing his extraordinary contributions to the Institute and to the world of mathematics. Unfortunately, a medical emergency required me in Chicago. And although all should soon be well in that regard, my absence from your celebrations will be for me an occasion of enduring regret. My only consolation is that in my absence doesn't leave our celebration directorless. Not that that would be particular, but it does not leave it directorless, since Philip Griffiths is with you to represent both the office and the Institute's long history of mathematics. As many of you know, I'm not a mathematician, but a historian. And perhaps because of that, my first instinct in celebrating Andrew, if I may call you Andrew, was to look back into the Institute archives for juicy tidbits I could share. Now, Andrew must have foreseen this moment way back in 1969, because I don't know that he ever filed a member's report on the year he spent here on that year he spent here, which is where I would go for my tidbits. Or more likely, he did file it, but I'm not a good enough historian to find it. So I've had to resort to more oral histories. There is, for example, the story that has become almost a legend of a cross-country road trip shared between Andrew and Philip Griffiths and Philip's wife Taffy in 1968, when they both simultaneously began their terms as members. Now, we often tout the Institute's ability to bring intellects together, whether it's coffee or tea or cookies. But I think sticking two mathematicians in a car from San Francisco to Princeton could certainly solve a lot of problems in the field, or maybe create new problems. Now, history does seem especially appropriate in celebrating this professorship, which honors nearly a century, more than a century of contributions to knowledge. Andrew's parents, Frank and Florence, for whom the professorship is named, were mathematicians themselves. Another Ogg's family story is that in 1919, Andrew's mother, Florence, achieved the highest score on her college's entrance exam in the history of her school. Florence went on to earn her doctorate in 1931, and Frank became a professor at Bowling Green State University in 1939, and then chairman of the math department from 1948 until 1965. And he was also a lifelong student of the history of science, even acting as acting librarian at Bowling Green for a brief time. There are not many mathematicians who have also been acting librarians of a university. And in 1970, after his retirement, the Frank C. Ogg Library of Mathematics and Science was declared at the university with 150,000 volumes of knowledge. So in the spirit of family, we're thrilled to be joined by Andrew's niece, Rosanna Magada, and her husband, Michael, who I'm sure would have many, many more Ogg family stories to share than I do. There are really so many things I would love to know more about, and if I were there, I would ask them about, from Frank's time in the army during World War I to the 3 rare Galileo editions that Frank and Florence helped to purchase in 1966. But above all, I would like to explore the Ogg family's many and enduring achievements in teaching and discovery in mathematics. For example, the Frank C. and Florence S. Ogg Memorial Scholarship at Bowling Green supports rising seniors majoring in mathematics in the College of Arts and Sciences. And of course, Andrew himself, who is very well known to all of us, is a scholar of number theory, elliptic curves, and modular forms, has had more than his fair share of achievements in teaching and discovery in mathematics. This includes his formula for the conductor of an elliptic curve and the 1975 characterization of supersingular primes that led the way for the theory of monstrous moonshine, which has to be the best named theory in math, exploring the connection between the monster group M on which Andrew did pioneering work in the early 70s, and modular functions, in particular the J function, which you'll hear about today in many of the lectures. That theory, too, has a long history of interconnections with the Institute and its inhabitants. I think of the importance of Peter Goddard's, another former director, Peter Goddard's no-ghost theorem from string theory in Borcherdt's 1998 proof of the Conway-Norton monstrous moonshine conjecture, for which I think Borchert won the Field Prize, and of Ed Witten's conclusion in 2007 that pure gravity with maximally negative cosmological constant is dual to the monster CFT. Now, I've read that when Andrew heard about the monster group, and I would have asked him about this if I could be there, and noticed that these were precisely the prime factors of the size of M, he published a paper offering a bottle of Jack Daniel's whiskey. Is that because it's the closest to moonshine one can get? To anyone who could explain this fact. I don't know if that bottle has been claimed, but if it has, I wouldn't be surprised if the claimant were yet another scholar with some connection to the IAS. So this new professorship at the Institute, which will be held for the first time by Jacob Lurie, extends the many contributions of the Ogg family into the perpetual future of mathematics, supporting, I hope, centuries of discovery to come. And it's especially wondrous that it has been made possible by an alumnus of the Institute who has been moved to support the Sweet Church because of his own experience here in the School of Mathematics. So in short, it's my great joy to celebrate this with all of you, even if only remotely. And to continue this celebration, I welcome my dear colleague, Akshay Venkatesh.
Thank you all for coming to the celebration of the Frank and Florence Ogg Professorship. And we're very grateful to Andrew Ogg for creating this professorship. I think the IAS played a very special role in my career and development as a young mathematician. And it's played that role for many young mathematicians now over many generations. And as a young mathematician, I never thought what goes into creating a place like this. I just assumed it exists. But it's an amazing thing. It exists because it can continue to exist because of gifts like this one, which acknowledge that what we're doing here is something worth supporting. It's something that's rare and that we have to really cherish. So the first holder of this professorship, as David said, will be my colleague Jacob Lurie. And I think I and everyone else who knows his work will agree that there couldn't be a more fitting first holder of this chair. Andrew's gift is, I think, particularly nice for us because it comes from someone who is a distinguished mathematician in his own right. And by some great fortune, we've been in this situation twice this year. We had the Prasad Professorship established earlier this year. And now, as then, we will celebrate in a way that I think only mathematicians might appreciate by spending the afternoon talking about math. And specifically, we'll talk about some of the math around the work of Andrew Ogg. Now, David has embarrassed me by including substantially more technical details than I was going to. But all I'll say is, I hope our speakers will say more, but the theory of modular forms, which used to be once considered backwater of number theory, became in the last 50 years this incredibly central and vital part of the field, maybe the most active part. And Andrew's work came near the start of that. And as you will see from the talk today, we can see all over the field the imprints of his work in the 1970s, not just in number theory, but also in fields that are far away, such as that of vertex algebras. Okay, so I will stop there. Let's perhaps all thank Andrew both for the establishing this professorship and for giving us the opportunity to be together today.